Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Stacy. It's episode 337. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy Penn. That is at StacyPenn89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing on this Tuesday night?
Doing all right. Victory Tuesday, I guess. The first Victory Tuesday of the preseason.
Yes, it is the first Victory Tuesday of the preseason. And we will talk about that and more. But before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strick.land on Instagram, posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are and you've not done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help to us. Also, if you can, please leave us a comment. Again, that would be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise available on our website. You can find that at www.thestrick.land. There's a link there that'll take you to the merchandise store. You'll find all kinds of new stuff on there. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, water bottles, coffee mugs, you name it. We've got it. There's also there's also merchandise with our new updated logo on there if you're interested in that. Finally, the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland's podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the new Strickland podcast, Takes from Obvious Bozos, that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, alongside Zach Blatter. You also get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strick and Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits like listening on part recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you, and none of this would be possible without BetOnline. Football is back, and BetOnline is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with all the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From week 1 all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the season, at least somewhat, started for the Knicks last night. I don't know if you had any takeaways from what we saw yesterday, Stacey, but if you do, go ahead and
The only big takeaway is I'd never want to see Jericho Sims play minutes of power forward again. Do we need to debate that or explain why? Or
I mean, I don't need to debate it. I don't really know that if it needs an explanation, but if you wanted to explain why,
it was even against backup the Celtics. Well, it was the backups to the Celtics backups, right? They didn't play their starters. You could see neither RJ nor Quickly. Anytime they could create, it came to creating like an inch of space for a shooter, but they always had an extra defender because nobody was respecting Sims at the perimeter. Sims can't do anything at the rim with Mitch there. There's no semblance of any kind. It's not even like honestly, Hartenstein Mitch might even work better than that because at least Hartenstein has that little 10 to 15 foot game where you can be a little dangerous. Hart was out. I get it. Preseason's the time next experiment. We've seen that Quickly McBride Grimes is a lineup that's had a lot of success. Probably not in as many minutes as we'd have liked, but their perimeter defense helps you a lot. So, trying a guy like RJ at the 4 in that situation would have been my preferred option, but it was very clear that didn't work. It was very tough for Quickly or RJ to create much space in those lineups. I think it was Jeff Rasmussen, Frank Barrett, who posted a couple of these clips from our account where, even on defense, people don't talk about it as much because you assume that, you get two bigs that must be good on defense. But Sims is now playing a different role, right? He's not a big and drop. He is, he's having to fight through screens. He's having to work as more of a weak side defender, right? Which I think he can be a good weak side defender. But you saw that the Celtics also were able to exploit the Knicks on that end. And that's a little bit confounded by the fact that they happened to throw Evan Fournier in for some of those minutes, which is my other takeaway. It's that It's almost like, have you ever seen The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler, the new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when the other dude's like, "Why can't I be quarterback?" And Adam Sandler's like, "All right, throw me the ball," and he like throws it at the ground. It's like that's why. That's what it seemed like happened with Evan Fournier, where he's been complaining, "I can still fucking play." Yesterday we didn't see it. He hit a three. He's probably still one of the better shooters on the team, but he was attacked constantly again by Boston's backups to their backups on defense, and there just seems to be very little change. So those are I think those are the main two takeaways. Is that like Sims at the four is not a tenable solution for any kind of extended minutes, and Evan Fournier is who we thought he was, and I don't think he really needs to be getting minutes outside of garbage time for this team.
Yeah, he's completely washed. I know there was some. I mean, on the broadcast, they kept bringing up like, "Oh, he hit some shots every time he hit a three." It was like, "Oh, this is what he can provide," and I just didn't see that. Like, the thing is, if he's not shooting, then he's just a liability on the floor. And I mean, like, literally, if you're not giving him the ball to shoot, he does nothing else for you. So there's no point in having him on the floor unless you're trying to get him shots. And why the hell would you be trying to get Evan Fournier shots, given the other talent on the roster? Um, and then I also just thought like his final stat line, I think he ended up with like 11 points or whatever. I don't remember what exactly it was. He had a few three. The only time he looked good, the only time he looked fine in the game was that fourth quarter. And that was when Boston put in like their real like super scrubs, like the deepest scrubs in the world. It was just like, and he finally looked okay. I don't see any path for him to minutes on this roster. I actually would just prefer they told him to stay home or like came to some kind of agreement where he was okay with that, because he shouldn't even be getting preseason minutes, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, because I would much rather see what we have in some of these other dudes hanging out there, because I'm positive Evan Fournier is not going to give you anything. The only reason he's still on this roster is to exist as an expiring contract. That's it. It's the only reason he's here. I don't really like talking about players like that, but that's what he is at this point in his career. He's not a good, if he's an NBA player, he's not a good one. And any minutes that went to him were a waste of time yesterday for everybody involved. Like, there were better lineups to experiment with. Basically, any lineup that doesn't involve Evan Fournier would have been a better experiment. And I just thought it was obvious he can't move anymore. Every time any defensive possession that he was on and they like used him in any kind of action on or off ball, he was a disaster. He just leads to so many breakdowns on end. He can't run. He can't get back in transition at all. I don't think it's a surprise that as soon as he came in, Boston scored in like 10, they scored like 10 points in a minute, maybe. It's not a surprise to me. Like, I don't, is it somewhat bad luck? Is some of that bad luck? Sure. But it's not a coincidence that this bad luck constantly happens when he's on the floor. He's just not a good player in any capacity at this point. And his shooting isn't worth it either, because he's not like, to me, he's not a guy like Duncan Robinson who can just not be in the rotation for about, I don't know, fucking 3 months and just come in cold and he's ready to go. Like, he's a guy who needs to kind of feel the game out for a bit, get into a rhythm and work himself in. And he's just not, he doesn't deserve that opportunity on this team, quite honestly. So, yeah, I'm good on any hope for Evan Fournier. The Sims thing is just weird. Like, I don't think we needed more proof that it doesn't work. It was pretty obvious last year it didn't work. If Thibs wanted to use that yesterday because Josh Hart was out and he wanted to like just give it a chance in this first preseason game, sure. But if you're talking about I'm a net rating guy, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, if you're a net rating guy, that's just not a lineup that should have taken priority over other lineups. If it was just some weirdo experiment he wanted to try, fine. But it's not one that should persist, because there are other lineups, even that were available to us yesterday without Josh Hart available and with Brunson playing limited minutes and with Randall playing limited minutes. There were still plenty of lineups available to us that would have been more fun, and just forget fun, just more effective on the floor. And yeah, I mean, like, I saw there was like some minor complaints about like I saw like on the timeline during the game of like, oh, RJ and Quickly are like forcing shots, and it's like, or they can't even destroy like the Celtics scrub unit. I'm like, man, look at what the Celtics are doing. Like they're just collapsing anytime those guys are on the ball and daring them to pass to Jericho Sims or daring them to pass to Hartenstein in the corner or whatever it was. And it's just like the spacing's not there. It doesn't look good. I honestly thought what they created, given that situation, I was actually impressed by it, like given the circumstances. But yeah, it's just
I
like
thought they both played well. I mean, they should play well. These are worse players than them, but most of the main guys, and that goes for Sims too. I'm not trying to shit on Sims. Like, I think he had some plays, and I think he's a really good. If he's your third five, that's great. But I thought the guys. There was no one whose performance I was really disappointed in yesterday. I think they all played pretty well, but I expected them to because the guys the Celtics put out there aren't really on their level.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't really on their level. I know Peyton Pritchard kind of had his moments, and he's a good player, but like
he is. But I'm saying
he's a good player, but they're like the Delano Banton isn't good, and I know he had like a nice game, I guess, yesterday, but I don't think the Knicks would have any issue. One, if they truly cared, and two, I think they would be very happy with living with Delano Banton like pull up jumpers out of pick and rolls. I don't think they have any issue with that. He banked in one off that disgusting three he banked in. He had some mid range stuff, and I don't really care about that. I'm pretty sure he won't even play once they get their real good players back because he's just not a good skill set fit with them. But to keep it to the Knicks, like I thought RJ looked good. I thought Quickly looked good. Like, and I kind of don't. I mean, I didn't even really care about how they shot. Like they just looked like they were moving well. And like more so in RJ's case, that's always been like a concern, right? When he comes back from the offseason, this doesn't always look like he's physically I don't want to say in bad shape, but he just doesn't look like he's fluid or as fluid as he can be, right? He's not the most fluid guy anyway, but he looked like he was moving well yesterday, and that was good to see, especially this early on. And like, Quickly looked fine. I thought he looked stronger than he did last year, and I know last year he looked stronger than he had the year before. So it's good to see him kind of continue that progression, which is something that he's mentioned, and his trainer actually had a
He had
quote
that
today.
one on the jumper. It just seen it was. I mean, it was a 20-foot jumper. Gets hit, throws it up, and it's swish. So he definitely looks stronger.
Yeah, he looks stronger. His trainer had an interview today, or maybe it was yesterday, with Bondi in the New York Post. He mentioned that Quickly's goal was to gain 10 pounds this offseason. He said he hit his goal. I tend to believe that only because it was like kind of a throwaway interview that didn't get a lot of hype, and Quickly himself didn't bring it up. So I kind of like believe that. And either way, he just looks stronger, which is good. I think he needed to get stronger. I think that's always been like a long-term project for him. So to see him continue to progress in that sense was good. And then, look, like honestly seeing most of these guys just play the way they did was good to me. Like I thought Brunson looked great and he was done after under 6 minutes. And I thought Randall actually looked really good. I thought he was really dialed in defensively in a way that he almost never was last year. So that was good to see. I kind of wish Grimes had shot better from three, but he looked fine. Some of his decision making, I think, left something to be desired. But again, first preseason game, maybe it's him getting used to like having more of a green light this year. And honestly, the big one for me was I just thought Mitch looked great. I thought Mitch looked really, really. I think he looked even stronger than he did last year. I thought he dominated a game that like clearly he should dominate given the matchups. And I was just impressed with kind of like how focused he was already in a preseason game.
Yeah, I think that the whole team's. I would see sloppy plays, and I'd have to remind myself it is preseason. But the flip side of that is that like it wasn't as much as I've been used to seeing, especially the first game of preseason, right? So I thought that the whole team was pretty clean. Look, some of Grimes is going to experiment with some stuff. Remember Summer League last year? He was doing a lot of shit, and some of it worked out well, and some of it didn't. He's going to experiment. They're going to have a little bit more freedom. It was a little concerning that organic involvement in like the kind of things we want to see him do was less. Like I don't think he touched the ball for the first few minutes of the game. It was mostly Brunson, RJ, and Randall, which is going to be a thing. But at least some of the decoy stuff, or pin down, some of the movement shooting that we've heard a little bit about this offseason, I didn't see that. And I get it. I think Prez has talked about this, right? That's not really efficient basketball, even from good players like Redick, right? But there's a reason why those guys do that. It's because it's very tough to defend, and situationally, it's very important to have that, and having that element would be good. So I'd like to see more of that from Grimes, but overall, like I mean, and the thing is, I mean, you said this, right? I don't think you take much from preseason normally, and there weren't. I mean, the guys that we watched a lot of, like I know what I'm going to get from Grimes. I know I'm going to get from Quickly. RJ, I know what I'm going to get. To be honest, I think his rim reads, he continued the kind of trend I saw from Cleveland. So some of you look at specific things for each player. Quickly and Grimes, they were basically what I expected. RJ, I think, continues to make a leap. I'm not worried about the jump shot. He wasn't hitting yesterday. Did a good job getting to the line. I thought his defense was more active. So I saw what I wanted from RJ. Randall was Randall, right? Like, it seemed like he was trying to be a little bit more, make better reads out of double teams. There were mixed results. Brunson still looks like, certainly for that team that the Celtics put out there, the kind of guy who's unstoppable. Like, it seemed Brunson seemed like, if you have Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or something, you put him out for a series in preseason just to sanity check everything, but they're not going to play. But those guys, what those guys are. In terms of the growth from Grimes and Quickly and Barrett, the final judgments in that are going to be really from this season, right? The regular season. We're not going to see that from a game like yesterday, but there's nothing I saw from those guys that was discouraging, and I think that's the most you can take away from a game like that. You're not going to take away that they made a leap somewhere.
Yeah. I think I've made this mistake. I think the last two preseasons, I think RJ shot really well from three, and I was like, oh, it's happening. And I mean, not to say that year before last, his third year, he was okay from three. I think he was 34%. I mean, that's fine. But last year, obviously, he had a really bad year from three. So I don't think that you should take too much from shooting percentages, good or bad. Obviously, you'd rather guys shot well than poorly, because who the hell wants their guys to shoot poorly before, as the season's about to start? But yeah, I don't really care about the percentages. I know there was I saw some people talking about RJ's form on his three looked weird. I have no take on that. I'm not a form person. I thought the three he did make looked pretty fluid. That's all I could say, really. He had to take he took one really stupid pull up, but other than that, I thought his 3-point shots were ones that you want him to take. And yeah, I mean, I was fine with his shot selection. I thought his decision making when he put the ball on the floor was really good. And yeah, I mean, again, I'm not as convinced that his decision making through the playoffs last year was as clean as everybody believes. I'm not saying it was bad, but I don't think it was super clean all the time, especially towards the end of the Heat series. I thought he kind of reverted back to some of the bully ball, bully ball is fine, but some of the single-minded bully ball stuff that we had seen from him last season. But but yeah, to see him start that way is really encouraging, because that's something that I think we had both noted, and a lot of people have noted. It's not like we're on an island here. That was an area for him to improve in. And yeah, it's obviously just good to see that. But yeah, with Grimes, I don't know. I don't know what really to take of it. He bricked some threes. He made a three. Some of his decision making on drives was I don't know, maybe just shoot the ball instead of putting it on the deck. He had one really bad possession where I don't remember who he was trying to. I think he was trying to take Nimius Keita off the bounce, and he went absolutely nowhere. Then he tried to make some jump pass in the air, which triggered a fast break for them. So the handle is definitely still I think he's still feeling some stuff out. But yeah, this is the time for him to do that. So go ahead, go crazy. But aside from that, like I just don't think there's a lot to take away from the game other than just guys they were healthy, or they stayed healthy, they got through it. Everybody looked like they were physically in shape. I guess the other thing that I kind of forgot about, because it's easy to forget about now, but it was good to see Randall moving and just generally being as athletic and aggressive as he was, given the ankle injury that he was dealing with last, at the very end of last season into the playoffs. So to just see him, like, because I think he needed surgery on it, right? If I remember correctly, they said they did some surgery on it. So to see him kind of just back moving as well as he was, and being in the mix, I thought that was good to see, and it was something that I actually kind of forgot about last night on the post game show. But it's definitely something that is worth mentioning. You're on mute.
He is physically one of the most difficult players to deal with in the NBA. Just pure physical ability to just bully someone and blow by them. You're talking about him being on the level of, I will say it, like guys like Giannis or Jokic. Like, just in terms of that physical, because he's quick enough to blow by basically any big. He's big enough to blow by to bully even most bigs. That's never been the question with him. It was nice to see that. I thought the starting unit's defense was active. I thought he was good on that end. Can we see it for 82 games? Can we see it in the playoffs? That's the question, right? So, but I mean, his physical talent has never been in question for me. But to your point, yeah, when you have a 28-year-old guy, you're always like, you want to see them come back without those questions, and that's not something we should take for granted. And it was definitely good to see him being, looking athletically like what we've come to expect.
Yeah, I agree. I think just again how he looked was good. So that was encouraging. And then I thought Dante, his first half was kind of like him feeling some stuff out. He looked a lot better in the second half to me. He hit a couple of threes without hesitating, which he did in the first half on several occasions. And he didn't. I mean, I know I know Thibs even said it too, like, oh, I like that he can play on or off ball. And he can play on ball a little bit. But I think you saw yesterday, like, he's nowhere near as kind of just patient and prudent in terms of like probing. He kind of gets a little rash once he starts penetrating inside the arc. So like you need to be careful with that. But he I thought he played well. I thought he made some of the kind of smart decisions that you were hoping to see from him. That play he made at the end of the third quarter to feed not Obi, sorry. Hartenstein for the fast break dunk right before the buzzer went off was really, like, that was a really heads up play and honestly perfectly timed. But yeah, like I think, his first play, he kind of like got the ball and then he swung it to RJ in the corner. He was open for a three. I like the unselfishness, and hopefully this is just something that comes with time, but it's like, hey man, you're a 40% 3-point shooter. Don't pass it to the guy who shot below league average from three the last 2 years. Like, I don't really care how open he is. You're the better shooter, so just shoot that. Obviously, that's something that you hope comes in time as he gains more confidence and familiarity playing with guys on this team. But yeah, I thought he had a good debut, and yeah, again, like, he didn't get hurt, which was my main concern. And yeah, so that was again very nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the big thing. You don't want any injuries going forward. What were kind of your big takeaways from the game, or anything that we haven't covered? Any individual players or anything like
that? I don't know if it's like, I don't know, it's kind of early because it's a one game, so maybe he was just trying shit out that he's not going to try out, or maybe he's going to try different things and come to a conclusion when the regular season starts. I think it's pretty obvious that, like, I think Quickly is pretty firmly above Grimes in his pecking order of like guys he trusts. And I know people will always kind of point to like, well, he likes size at the end of games and matching up defensively and blah blah blah. and not this isn't even to say he doesn't like Grimes. I know he likes Grimes. I think that's pretty well established. But there's always been this weird thing of like I think Knicks fans associate kind of like some of his weirdo tendencies as a coach with he doesn't care or like or appreciate what Quickly brings to the table. And I just have never. I mean, not I I should never. I can't say I've never believed that. I've definitely believed that at points. But I thought last year he kind of moved past some of the weirder concerns he had with Quickly a second year. I thought he gave him a lot more freedom and trusted him a shit ton at the end of games. We saw that consistently throughout the season. Um, what I thought was interesting was just like that third quarter when they were both on the floor together, and it's it's those two and DiVincenzo and two guys that are never going to handle the ball for Thibs and Mitch and Sims. Like Grimes really got zero opportunity to create, to run a pick and roll, to do any of that. It was almost all Quickly. It was almost all Quickly in that period, and I thought that stood out. I also feel like he brought Quickly in for Grimes, right? I think that was the first sub, or was it for Brunson? I don't remember exactly, but like I just think Quickly is to him like I think him and Hart are kind of like I mean he said this before, right? Like doesn't matter who starts, it's who closes. And with those two guys especially, I do think like he almost views them as starters who happen to be on our bench. Um that stood out to me anyway. Like especially with how Quickly kind of closed last year in the playoffs where he was a little bit not a little bit, he was a basket case offensively. He's making really bad decisions. And I think Thibs justifiably to some extent lost trust in him. But like again, meaningless preseason game, but I think it's good to see that Quickly kind of still has that trust from him. And more importantly, in the sense of like there was this consternation of like, right, like, oh, well, we got DiVincenzo now. Remember, like as soon as we signed DiVincenzo, it's like, oh well, are they gonna trade Quick for OG Anunoby or do this or use him to get this guy or whatever? And I never thought that made sense because if you've watched Dante DiVincenzo play, you're a fucking idiot if you think he's a point guard. Like straight up. If you think he can run an offense, even if you don't think Quickly is very good at it, you have to accept that Quickly can do it at a acceptable level. Like DiVincenzo can't fucking do it. And if you think otherwise, you haven't watched him fucking play or you're a moron. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like he's never done it. He can't do it. He's not particularly good at it. It's not even I mean, that's not a knock on him as a player. There's a lot of guys in the NBA that aren't particularly good at running offense. Deuce McBride's a player we both like. Guess what? He can't run an offense right now. Like not very well, not until he gets in the fourth quarter against guys that aren't going to be on the fucking Celtics actual roster. Not until then can he actually run an offense at an acceptable level right now. Maybe hopefully he's just working some knocking off the rust and he's going to ball out in the rest of the preseason and make this all amazing, like a tough, oh my God, are they going to have to go 10 deep? Man, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Do I anticipate that? No. But I thought after all of this stuff with like, oh, what does Dante mean for Quickly and all this, for Quick to be the guy that immediately came in when Brunson sat and to very clearly be empowered as the point guard when both those guys were on the floor together, I thought that was a very important and critical kind of takeaway, more so even than, I mean, I don't really care if Thibs likes Grimes more than Quickly. Like, I can understand that, even if I don't agree. But like, I think it's very important that he did not view Dante as like, oh, maybe he's the point guard here, and Quickly should move back to that off-ball role. Like that was way more important for me to see. And the other part is like, I think the other thing that I felt strongly about anyway was that let's see if Randall continues this. And I already noted the defense, but I thought offensively throughout the game, he was making a very concerted effort to get off the ball and let other guys get touches in, especially early in the game. I thought he was really good about that. Even when he came back in the first half, he had a possession where he eventually had to like swing it to either RJ or it ended up in some shitty like bailout deuce three that he completely airmailed it. But like he was trying to get Grimes free for a three, and Grimes just didn't make the right read. So then he had to reset it and whatever. But like, I just thought he was making such a concerted effort about that revisiting his comment about like, he talked about this on the Paul George pod, right? Where he's like, oh, it's the first time I got to study film and really like get into that. And he talked about being a more efficient player during, I think it was on media day that he did that. So to kind of just like see that action in some way, or that those words be put to action in some ways, even if it is, I mean, the fact that it is a meaningless preseason game almost makes it more meaningful for Randall, because we know these are the type of situations in the past, especially like against an opponent who he clearly is more talented than, that he will just kind of fuck around and not be focused and just do whatever. And so I thought for him to bring the level of focus he did yesterday really was impressive. And honestly, like, I'm not saying it's the reason, but I do wonder if, like, look, RJ has talked about this. A lot of these guys have talked about like Randall being the leader and how much he means, and he doesn't get enough credit and blah blah blah. I do wonder if like seeing Randall compete the way he did yesterday set the tone in a way and like rubbed off on a guy like RJ, who we know last year was just not what you want to see from him on the defensive end of the floor. So, um, and again, like yesterday, we both mentioned this, he was really good on defense yesterday. At least he was very competitive, right? So to see that, um, is that I'm not saying Randall deserves credit for that, but it would not surprise me if like, when you see your best guy competing the way he was, even in a preseason game, if that rubs off on dudes, yeah, so be it. I think that's a good thing. And I think last preseason, I shit on Randall for his defensive effort throughout. Like I was like, I don't like the way this is trending. This is not great. I think he needs to pick it up. I understand it's preseason, but he needs to be a little bit more focused. And I said that about RJ too. And so for both those guys to be as focused as they were, I think is pretty cool. And I think that actually does mean something.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Let's see if it lasts. I think I'm more optimistic with that on RJ than I am with Randall. RJ was adjusting a lot last year. Randall, to me, your role was reduced or you had less pressure offensively because of Brunson. There were fewer excuses last year, but it's one game. It's a welcome sign. I still don't really trust Randall in double teams. I didn't love his reads there. But I mean, I think going back to what you were saying about DiVincenzo, I think that once if you remove all the rhetoric around, he's going to take minutes from Grimes, he's take minutes from IQ, and all of the kind of fear mongering. You could see, and that was what probably pissed me off the most about the Sims minutes, or the Sims at the 4 minutes. I would have loved to see more of Jericho Sims at the 5. Was that like that unit, especially pair him with like those two guys together, even like you could see they were constant movement off each other. One guy would pass screen away, keep moving, the other guy would kind of make a quick decision. Like whenever Quickly and DiVincenzo, and when they were on the court with Grimes, or RJ, like you could see that these, like, you added another quick decision maker who's going to amplify Quickly, and I think that part of the why I think Quickly is good with the starters. He's been one of the best teammates for Randall, but you do see that when he plays with them, his game is a little bit different. He's more of a floor spacer or an attacking scorer, but everything is slowed down. And that's just the nature of the Knicks starting lineup. But when he got to play with DiVincenzo, or when he's going to play with the bench in previous years, right? With McBride, with Obi, obviously. Obi and him had great chemistry. When he plays with quick decision makers, it unlocks another part of his game that to me is very intriguing and something I'd like to follow up on. So I think that to that I saw what I saw what I wanted to see in terms of, with DiVincenzo, he didn't shoot the ball very well, hit a couple of nice threes at the end. But do is he going to add a different element to this team? That's something I think I saw. And the other thing is, like, whenever you have someone like this, you have to ask, like, or you have someone, a clash of styles, right? The Knicks front office got this guy who's a movement shooter. He's coming from the Warriors offense, loves to move the ball. Bit of a freelancer on defense in the same mold as Quickly. Is the Knicks offense going to mold him to them? Or is he going to add another element to the Knicks offense? And we saw this a little bit with Hartenstein last year. In the beginning of the last year, it was kind of Hartenstein's identity, and there was the injury and all that was kind of muted because he was playing the Mitchell Robinson role. But also towards the end of the season, he started to bring his own flavor to the Knicks offense. So I think that the potential for both exists. I think DiVincenzo has enough kind of cachet where you let him play and he's going to be able to do some of those things. Like I think he'll have some leeway in terms of freelancing and all of that. And I'm sure with him being the free agent acquisition, like the Knicks probably told Thibs, like, the front office probably told Thibs, he has to be allowed to freelance a little bit. But I think that everything I was expecting to see from IQ and DiVincenzo, I got to see a little bit of. And the only thing really holding it back was Sims at the 4. So,
yeah, Sims at the 4 was an experience again for another time this with this team and this coach. But I have kind of just like, again, I just think that is some weird Thibs thing where Hart wasn't playing, so he just decided, okay, well, this is my chance to give Sims a chance there, or try that out. I am curious to see what happens in the next preseason game. Theoretically, we should have, I mean, not theoretically, I mean, we should have Hart back unless somebody gets hurt in, like a practice or something. But if Hart's back, like it will be very concerning then if Sims sees minutes of the 4, especially in like the first half. If he does it in the second half because he's going to rest Hart or rest RJ or whatever, like that's fine as some kind of like weird fail-safe option he wants to try. But if he does it when we're still in like the portion of the game where we should be playing our normal 9-man rotation, that will be very, very concerning. Because I don't see any upside with that. There's no upside with that Sims lineup at the 4, right? What is the upside of that? Like the upside is what? Is Sims or Mitch or Hartenstein? Any of those guys are going to suddenly become shooters? Or are like, especially the one with him and Mitch is brutal, where it's like these guys are literally just vertical rim running lob threats, and that's it. There's nothing else that they do on the floor. So I don't know. That one definitely is something to watch, but I'm not that concerned about it. But like, yeah, it's odd.
I mean, I think that they have to be prepared though for games where Barrett isn't going to play where Hart isn't going to play because I want to see what can RJ hold up at the 4, right? Especially against a team yesterday that doesn't really have a lot of big options there. So, I would have liked to see some minutes of like Quickly Dante, Grimes, RJ.
Yeah, but like that's kind of my point. Is that even if Hart is out, I think like the main takeaway from this is if Hart is out, is he really going to do this again? Like we can't just play an 8-man rotation, especially against that Celtics team that was on the floor yesterday. Like who was going to kill you with size exactly on that team? Like who were you so mortified about? Like, man, I really hope we can physically match up with this guy. I don't really get that. I don't see it. So like that is if there is a concern, that's the one, because it's like I think that was totally a matchup given the lineups they were playing that you could have 100% gone Quickly, Deuce, Grimes, RJ, center. Like I don't think you needed at least try it. The fact that he didn't even try it at any point is a little concerning. I'm not gonna lie about that. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Because that should be an option. It shouldn't be like the default is, well, Hart's not here, so I got to play Sims at the 4. If that's something that he was just trying out because you need to, sure, fine. There's no upside with that group. given their kind of like their skill sets. It's just not there. So I mean, it's not even just their skill sets, right? Like what team in the current NBA does that? Like there is no team that, I mean, the Pistons tried it last year a little bit with like Wiseman and Duran lineups, and guess what? They're not doing it anymore. So just stop doing that. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, they tried. I mean, they tried. They had some answers prepared. They were trying to use Jericho as a screener, but there was one play early on where quickly had, he's posting up on Pritchard. He had his back to Pritchard, and they had Sims at the 3-point line and DiVincenzo in the corner, and quickly got to the middle, and he drew Sims's defender to him, or he drew like DiVincenzo's defender to him by a step. And normally that read is like, all right, it's an open kick out. He kicks it out to DiVincenzo. So quickly kicking out to DiVincenzo in the corner should be money for that unit. We can't do
That's a
much
high,
better than that.
that's one of the best shots that unit is going to get.
Yeah, but the Sims defender was so unburdened, he was immediately there. So DiVincenzo had to pump fake. He got to the rim, but then again, Mitch is already at the rim, so it doesn't make sense for Sims to crash. And so DiVincenzo didn't get a clean rim look. He ends up kicking out to RJ again, and there's a shot clock violation. So, and no one's fault. It's just those are like and that again. I mean, Boston is a well-coached team. It's a good defense. They have a good. I'm sure even their backups are very well trained. So I'm not going to say that. I'm going to give Boston credit, but those are just the challenges you deal with, right? I am curious, some of the backups. Let's start with Deuce. Deuce had a rough shooting night. What are kind of your thoughts on? Because it is interesting. We don't like talking about this because we don't want to trade quickly. At some point, the fact that I think that if you're very high on quickly, you have to be open to the idea that when the star trade happens, other teams are probably also going to be high on him and going to want him. And the Knicks have accumulated a lot of guards. One of them is overseas. Another one of them is Deuce McBride. I don't think Deuce can ever be a replacement for quickly in the sense that I just don't see him ever becoming that kind of creator. But I do think, if we have to get rid of quickly or Grimes, right? Or one of these guys who brings some of the stuff, what did you see from McBride? Did anything change in your opinion from what you saw yesterday? I know a lot of people are down on his offense. I thought he had some nice takes. I still believe in the shooting. I don't think there's really any form issues, but let's start with McBride. Now that we're talking about some of the, I mean, did you want to talk about any of the main guys before? Like, I think that the main guys
not
for me
really.
It was syllabus week, right? That's just you're not going to learn much about that.
Yeah, I don't really care about the main guys. No, I thought Deuce, like, again, the defense is really good. I thought, especially, it was really funny actually in the fourth quarter when again Boston put in like the super scrubs. That I don't know who the hell was running point for them. Every single time he brought the ball up the floor and tried to run a pick and roll, he went absolutely nowhere. Like he could never get any separation. I don't even know if he got into the paint a single time. Deuce just completely locked him up. And obviously, like against actual NBA players, even a guy as good as Deuce will not be able to just totally keep like teams out of the paint. But that just serves as an example of just like quite how dominant of a defender he can be at times. So that was pretty cool to see. His passing again in the fourth, like forget this is the problem with Deuce, right? He's neither the shooter right now nor the ball handler to consistently draw defenders to leverage his passing. Because actually, as a passer, I think he's a better passer than Quickly is. I think he's got more passes in like the variety of passes he can throw.
He was a high school quarterback, so
yeah, he's a much better lob passer. I think he's better passing with his offhand than we've seen him Quickly. Like he's got more passing ability. But this is something that I always go back to. Like I remember from the Frank Ntilikina days is like, I think Frank's a great passer. Guess what? Frank has no gravity. So most of the time, it doesn't matter that he's a really good pick and roll passer because he's just not creating the openings to make that ability matter so much. And so with Deuce, until like he can create those opportunities for himself, because his handle just is not, it's either not there or he's not confident enough in using it. And sometimes I think it's the former, but then sometimes I think it's the latter, because I'm like, I'll watch him get into the paint all of a sudden and just go for a layup. And I'm like, wait, where did that just come from? Like, do that more. Why are you so hesitant to do that? And he takes so long to bring the ball up and set the fucking play up. I'm like, why are you walking the ball up? We're not in West Virginia, dude. Like, this is not Bob Huggins. This is not a 30-second fucking shot clock. Get the fucking ball off the floor. I'm not saying you got to sprint it up there, but
do you know who the coach of the Knicks is?
I know who the coach of the Knicks is, but he will have to get the ball up the floor faster than that. It's ridiculous. Like, Quickly does it. I highly doubt
Well,
Thibs
Quickly has earned that trust, right? So
yeah, but this is you want the fucking minutes? Do you want minutes? Does Deuce McBride, you're in your third NBA season, you're basically in a contract here. Do you fucking want minutes? Be a fucking man, let your balls drop, and go get minutes then. Like, he had these possessions.
Do the right thing.
He has these possessions yesterday where he's like, he like is in the fourth quarter. Okay, this is your time to shine. You are the point guard. You are being empowered as the point guard. There's no question of who was running the show in that fourth quarter for the Knicks. He has these possessions where he brings the ball up and he does the Frank thing, right? Throws it to Fournier, then clears out to the other side of the floor. And then even if the possession stalled out on that side, he's not aggressively going there to go get the ball. You're the point guard. Go get the ball there. Go get the ball. Go make something happen. Stop deferring to the corpse of Evan Fournier on the floor with you. Like, that's the shit that I want to see from him. And that's the shit that I wanted to see from him last year. Even in G League, we were talking about this. And at least in G League, I was like, all right, well, maybe they just want to see Grimes more, right? Maybe that's what that is. But like,
Summer League.
Or yeah, that's what I meant, Summer League. But like, yesterday is just like, I'm like, that's like, how many opportunities is Deuce McBride going to have to run point for an entire quarter? How many opportunities is he going to have? He's not going to have, he's going to barely have any this year. Even if Jalen Brunson misses 2 weeks, let's say Jalen Brunson misses a month. Hopefully, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But let's say that did happen. How many minutes a game would you bet that Tom Thibodeau allows Deuce McBride to run point? And not just run point, but like clearly be the guy that everybody's depending on to organize and initiate the offense. I would say like maybe 2 minutes a game. Maybe 2 minutes a game. Because as soon as they have like one possession that stalls out, he's going to get Quickly on or get RJ on or get Randall on, and the offense will run through them immediately. Like, you have got to take the opportunities if you're him right now. This is your chance. And I don't give it, like, it was good to see him shoot as much as he did. I'll say that. Like, that was good to see, because we know the one thing Thibs cannot abide by is like a guy passing up on open shots, right? He didn't do that. But you've got to do more than take open shots. You've got to create shots. That's where he's at in his career. It's your third year in the league, and you're a fucking guard. You're a 6'2" guard. Like, you have to do more than just run the offense. Like, oh, I swung it to Fournier and they're going to run something here and I'll go clear out to their side. Like, no, you've got to get into the paint. You've got to create. And like, to be fair to him, he did a little bit more than the fourth, especially towards the end of it. But like, I need to see more than what we saw yesterday. These are the opportunities you have. Take them. Like,
I mean, did he get many minutes without the two big tandem? He was facing the same constraints as Quickly, right?
Okay. Quickly still fucking did shit.
Well, yeah, but if that's the expectation, Quickly's, a player who's going to get $20 million.
Take 6 pull-up threes. Take 6 pull-up threes. What's going to happen? He's going to bench you? He's going to bench you in preseason?
He took 4 threes. He was 0 for 4.
Yeah, they weren't. How many pull-up threes did he take?
They're mostly catch and shoot. You're right. I think he took at least 1 or 2.
Take a fucking pull-up three. That's your game. That is this guy. I'm watching him in G League. He looks like Steph Curry. I understand you're not going to translate what he does in G League to like anything in the NBA, but play like it. Like, have you ever seen that movie Boiler Room?
Yeah.
Act as if. Like, that's
if you don't got a jump shot, you're what is it? You're slinging crack rock, or does that sound
you're not Steph Curry in the NBA. But act as if you're Steph Curry in the NBA when you're playing fucking, I don't know, whoever the hell was, like, it was like Coach Carter's fucking school out there for the Celtics.
That's just because Peyton Pritchard looks like what's his name, Channing Tatum. That's the only reason you're saying.
Yeah, but like it's just like, come on, like let's see a little bit more here. You got to see a little more. And I think actually in that fourth quarter there was some of it where he actually got like, not that it was great spacing, right? But it's like Nathan Knight at the 4, who is more of a 4 than Jericho Sims.
Jacob Toppin, who we should talk about. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm not saying the spacing was amazing or immaculate, but it was a little bit better and just like a little bit more natural.
Well, I'm saying I think if Quickly's playing that team with a normal 4, he's going for 30. He literally went for 38 against their starters last year, right? He ended up with 21 on like a ho-hum night. So like grading on that curve, I do not think Deuce does not need to prove to me that he's Emmanuel Quickly. He needs to. I think that there was
no, but he needs to prove like what is he? He's a 6'1", 6'2" guard.
Right? He's still a highly impactful player. Maybe he's just Javon Carter.
That. I'm not denying that.
He's an impactful you wanted player. To see more in terms of growth, and
but like
I think maybe he's never going to be there.
He doesn't. I understand, like you, but that's your opportunity to just do shit. And like, again, Thibs is not going. That's like the one situation he will ever have. That's the one situation he'll ever have where he could fucking turn the ball over 3 times, go 0 for 6, and Thibs is probably just going to leave him out there. So one time you're going to have that opportunity. There's no reason to waste it deferring to Evan fucking Fournier, who literally, again, was only on the roster for expiring salary. Like, that's what my frustration
but
with.
He also has to be able to show that he can make the right play, right? I mean, this is
right.
It's not,
but that's not him making the right play. That wasn't him throwing it to Fournier and clearing out the other side of the floor, and then standing around while him and Jericho Sims are running the worst 2-man game possible is not running. That's not running the show. That's not running the offense. That's not making the right decision. That's just deferring. That is, to use one of my favorite terms, that's a dereliction of duty if you're a point guard. Like, your job is to get the team.
Why don't you derelict my ball?
Yeah, man. But like that is your job. Like, this was the thing that, and to be fair, like, I used to kind of excuse this with Frank, right? Because I like Frank. But like, I like Deuce, but I learned from my mistake. Like, no, you've got to show more. This is your job. Do more than this. And so, like, I just need to see him take more control in the situations where he needs to, like, because that is what, like, you know, whatever you want to say about Thibs, right? We saw this in Chicago. We've seen this. We saw this in Minnesota too. Like, if he has to go to his third point guard, he'll do it. And if that third point guard is willing to, like, actually get into the paint and create, he'll let them. He will let them do it. That's what he wants them to do. And Deuce is not going to, he's not going to be Nate Robinson or whatever the fuck on offense, but like, you've got to run a high pick and roll. Just tell fucking Fournier, clear out to the corner, okay? And just call Sims, call him up and run a high pick and roll. What is the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have to pick up your dribble and pass it anyway? Okay, but give yourself those opportunities. Give yourselves those reps. And so, like, that's it. Like, I just want Deuce to be more like, like, take more control of a situation where, again, like, you're in your third year, you're in a contract year. I'm not saying you're playing for your NBA livelihood, but you are playing for a contract right now. So, like, understand that and take advantage of the opportunities you have. Like, to me, yesterday I saw some nice passing. I saw, I like that he made a mid-range pull-up in the fourth quarter, whatever. I like that he took the shots that he should take. But yesterday, to me, feels like just like a missed opportunity for him. Like, that's a missed opportunity. That, like, I don't know if you remember this. I remember when quickly when he first got into the game is in preseason, his rookie year. And like, I don't even know if he played the first game we had.
No, he didn't. No, that was the beginning of history.
Yeah, he didn't play the first game. Then he got in the second game, and you could immediately tell, like,
he's a different talent.
Yeah, he's maybe got a different confidence, but that's kind of what you need to be, right? Is like, I don't think Quickly came in at that point. It was just hijacking the offense, but he came in and was like, okay, I'm open from 3. I'm going to take this shot.
Well, he had 7 assists his first game too. He was just more instinctive as a playmaker than
So
anyone on the Knicks roster.
Yeah, you just need Deuce to, like, again, it doesn't need to be to the same level because I don't think he's going to be the same level of player that Quickly is. But you've got to take advantage of your opportunities when they're there, and that was, to me, again, just a missed opportunity for him, and that's really frustrating.
Yeah, and I mean, I think where I probably maybe don't sound the alarm. I don't see Deuce being the focal point of an offense like ever.
Yeah,
To
never,
your
never.
point, it can happen under Tibbs, in break glass in case of emergency situations. I see him being as like a Javon Carter or a Patrick Beverly, a Marcus. I think Marcus Smart was the ceiling I had for him coming out of college. I
So
probably
just a really annoying player. That's your
he.
comparison for.
Did you watch what he did to Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what he was, right? I mean, I think he's a much more likable. If or you're saying like personality wise,
Yeah.
he seems very mellow. Like every guy in that mold, Pat Beverly or Marcus Smart is kind of a tool, and like Deuce just seems like a nice guy. But I like for me, it's like running the offense. I've kind of been on that ship has sailed thing. If he can shoot 40% from three and give that defense, like he'll have a role. Um, so like yeah, like I don't see him ever being the backup point guard. I think if they trade quickly, it's gonna to bring Jokic over. If Deuce survives that trade, then or sorry, remains on the Knicks in that trade, I think he's more of a shooting guard, and because he's big enough to guard wings, like there's not real or shooting guards. You don't mind him playing next to another point guard, especially the ones the Knicks have. So I think that's why I'm probably less alarmed. But to your point, yeah, like we're just not seeing evidence, and it's year three that this guy can really be a creator, right? He is a good connector, yes. Let me throw this back to you though. Based on and it might be tough to recall or draw 1-to-1 or there's going to be some recency bias or whatever. How would you compare how you felt about Frank in his third year versus Deuce?
um. Well, I'll say this: like, I think I learned a lot from Frank in the sense of like, if it's not gonna happen, like if it's gonna happen, sorry, if it's gonna happen, it probably would have happened by a certain point in time. And if he hasn't shown certain level of skills by your third year, then probably it probably won't happen for you. Like so, it's what it is. It's but like to to answer your question, kind of in relation to Deuce, like I I think what I remember is like I still thought Frank had the potential to be a pretty solid point guard. I don't think I harbored any feelings anymore that he would be some kind of like awesome high level guard. I think I also the thing is I always and I mean not that I still feel like but like I always felt Frank had more avenues as a player just because he's bigger. So like you can put him into more lineups. So if your role like if Deuce is going to just be like an off ball guard effectively that has to play off of creators, that's fine. There's definitely situations for him. Um one of them could be the Knicks, sure, but like there's less lineups that he's slots into. If Frank could shoot 36, 37% from three on decent volume, like he would be able to play a shit ton of minutes because he can defend. It's like, it's not play, right? It's how many positions can you defend? And Frank can defend legitimately 1 to 3. And honestly, like he can defend a lot of fours because he's just a big ass dude. Deuce can defend 1 to 2 max.
You don't think
And
threes?
I think there are threes that would abuse
He's
him.
strong as
Like, come
fuck.
on. He is strong as fuck, but that's just a huge size mismatch. Like, come on, Jimmy Butler's going to destroy him. Like, and I'm not saying obviously the average three is not Jimmy
Well,
Butler, but like,
but yeah, even Cade, they put an Alec Burks for him on Cade because Cade
yeah,
was shooting over him as a rookie.
right.
So
So like, these are the things that limit him, and so
I think you're
he,
overstating Frank's ability there a little bit, but I get where you're coming from, and yeah, I don't think you're wrong necessarily. But
yeah, I just think like, well, I mean, the ceiling or the peaks that Deuce has had defensively, I would say like at least in terms of impact are probably higher than Frank's overall.
yeah,
Like,
I mean he
yeah,
fucking
so
destroyed Donovan Mitchell in a playoff game.
right,
That's pretty
right.
high
So
peak.
so to me, like that is meaningful, but he has to hit a higher threshold offensively than Frank did. Not that Frank hit it, but like he has to hit a higher threshold offensively than Frank did because he's going to like he can't play in as many lineups. Simple as that.
Yeah. I actually disagree. Just because I think shooting is going to be the make or break thing, and I'm just way higher on Deuce's shooting ability than Frank's. He showed more as a pull up guy. I like his form better. I think it's a quicker release. I think a lot of his percentage issues are just due to a lack of sample size. Um, and I also think he's just a little bit more. I actually like his point of attack defense better. I
Yeah,
think
I
they're
think it's a better
both good
point of
off
attack.
ball defenders. And I think so. I think the things that he's very good at, I believe in him being very I think his best traits. Someone said this about Mitch yesterday, and I think this is the best quote. I forgot who it was. I think it might have been Jaded on Twitter, or I don't remember who it was, but they said the things that Mitchell Robinson is
Is
good at.
Ariel.
It was Ariel. Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing that Mitchell Robinson is good at, he is elite at, right? Um, and that was that was yeah, that's it, right? He does, he has a very specific set of skills, right? Um, but but he's great at that. That I think applies to Deuce. I think he is an elite point of attack defender. I would put him on the level of guys like Smart or why not, right? Smart, Drew Holiday, why would I he didn't get the respect from the refs probably, but other than that, his lateral movement, his hands, his agility, his ability to do that really without fouling. He's gotten into foul trouble at times, but that often seems to be rookie stuff. And I like his shot better than Frank. I think Frank was probably, to your point, because of the length, a little bit more positionally versatile. He could guard wings. You could throw him at a guy like Jason Tatum. But I think there's a very easy role for me to envision with Deuce. That's and it's partly because he's a little more unique in that sense, right? Whereas Frank, for all the you know the benefits of having a guy with a 7 foot wingspan and 6'5", who with good feel, that's not as unique I think an archetype as the level of point of attack defender Deuce is, and if the shooting that we saw in college, that we've seen in the G League, that it looks like you can surmise from the form. And I haven't done the Prez Zapruder analysis. That's probably a topic you should have with him on the pod. I think that that would be why I would probably be higher on him at this point.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
anyway, Frank's still on a team too, and I think both will be 10-year pros. So
Deuce just has to shoot better. I don't really know how much there's to comment on that other than that. If he's gonna shoot, it's just got to happen at some point. A
why
guy
don't you
that's
go
gonna shoot,
home, ball? Don't you want to go to your home?
a guy that's gonna shoot well. Look, those first two air balls were ridiculous. Come on, man, what are we doing here? That that first one especially was insane. And it's I'm not saying it's over for him, but come on, at some point you got to the guy shoots too many ugly threes for somebody who's supposed to be a good shooter. It's just got to happen at some point. So I'm that's all I'm that's on him. He's either gonna make shots or he's gonna miss them, and we'll see what happens. But
Maybe
I
his
don't think there's
palms are
all
sweaty, knees weak,
maybe.
arms are heavy.
I mean, it sure looked like he was passing it to Evan Fournier yesterday, but yeah, it's either he's either gonna do it or he's not. I don't really know what else there is to say about that. It's just he's got to make it happen for himself. No one else can do it, and he's not going to be some dynamic dribble drive guy. So it's not like he has another avenue to really establish himself offensively.
Yeah, in that
So
sense,
yeah,
it is a narrow avenue, but I would put a high probability on it. Moving on, so if I told you this offseason that you're going to hear alley oop to Toppin in a Knicks game this season for the Knicks, what would you have said?
very surprising that Obi's still on the team.
Well, we saw his brother Jacob Toppin did some things. Thibs had some interesting comments. Um, about that, and a lot of the Obi has become, I guess, a polarizing topic on shit, even between me and you, I guess. Not polarizing so much as but Tibbs said Obi was probably a more advanced offensive player, probably a little more athletic, and
Yeah,
that's the knock
probably
on
he probably was a little
Jacob.
bit more advanced offensively. National Player of the Year, yeah, he probably was.
And I mean, and he's probably one of the best athletes in the NBA vertically for sure, and runs like a deer. But said Jacob was a little bit further along defensively, or he just said Jacobs is a good defense player. I think that quote has gotten too much whatever in the things, but I'm curious. What did you think of Jacob Toppin? Do you think that's a guy who can maybe earn minutes this year?
I don't think he's going to earn minutes this year. Can he earn a roster spot? I actually would hope so, because I thought the way he moved, like at his size, was so. Is Obi a better athlete than him? Definitely, like no question. If you're just saying overall athleticism, but what I thought was interesting with Jacob was like he seems to move better laterally. He seems more fluid in that sense. Like he had some plays yesterday where he was kind of dribbling up in transition, and he never felt like he was going to get all the way to the rim, and he didn't. But it also felt like he was more capable of kind of navigating laterally in ways that Obi never was off the dribble. And I thought that was intriguing. His defensive instincts for sure seem more natural and better, which I want to find the quote, because I did think like people went a little bit crazy with it, but I don't think it was like totally insane to like to take something from what Tim said. This is what he said. Obi's probably a little more athletic, but Jacob's pretty athletic as well. Obi's probably a little more gifted right now, further down the road offensively, but but Jacob is a good defensive player right now, which okay, I mean take that for what it is. But I would agree. Like, I mean, I know this level of competition wasn't good, but I thought his defense was good. He didn't jump around. He wasn't like trying to shoot passing lanes, getting out of position. He seemed to make the right rotations as a help defender. He seemed to be a good actual like presence at the rim. And I thought even offensively, like his shot looks pretty bad right now, but he always tended to be in the right place, which is probably more important than the actual output at this moment in time. I know he's a little bit older, like Obi, I think he's 23 when he came in the league. But he to me is like, I've seen Isaiah Roby play, I would much rather roster Jacob Toppin than Isaiah Roby. I'd much rather keep him in the G League, give him a 2-way or sign him to an Exhibit 10 or whatever the fuck you want to do. But like, I would probably like to keep that guy around in the organization, give him an opportunity to develop and maybe revisit what he is in a year, because there is stuff there with him, like the size and the athleticism that is at least intriguing.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And when we say he's not as athletic as Obi, that's not to say he's not a very athletic player.
He just
You
doesn't
saw it on
pop
this.
vertically the same way, and he doesn't run the same.
Well, nope. Who does, right? Who does in
Yeah.
the NBA, right? So I think he's still one of the best athletes on the Knicks. You saw from the alley-oop, he's clearly got vertical gravity. I think his lateral quickness is a little bit better than Obi, and that was really that's the thing.
I think it's significantly better, to be honest.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the high hips, right? So like he seems, at least logically, not that we saw it yesterday, but like you would think that he's probably got a little better chance if guys are trying to back him down of holding his position or making it tougher on them.
And also moving backwards and forwards and drop coverage, right? If he does, he's not gonna he's only 6'7", so he probably him at the 5 is probably even less of a thing than Obi. But what I like, yeah, at least on this. Well, he's also, if he's gonna do that, he needs to get up to get in the gym with Big Omar. But I think that he's and I think that this is the other thing. Like Obi, as much as I think we disagree on his defense. I will say this: I thought his feel on defense was always very good. He has very good instincts. Like Obi is one of the more cerebral and really smart players. To the extent that I think he could maximize his abilities, he came pretty close to that here on defense. And I think if there's reason to believe in the same, I haven't watched enough Jacob to make that statement, because Obi was a really smart player. I thought Jacob was generally in the right place yesterday. Tough thing to do in preseason. You just have training camp. Everyone's raw, and haven't really seen the NBA speed and all of that. But I think that he's an interesting guy, and he's the kind of guy we wanted, right? 6'7", 6'8" guy with some length. Can he play the three one day? That'd be interesting to see. Um, and then, yeah, no, I mean, I think that he was the guy. And then with Nathan Knight, was there anything you took away from him?
Um, Not especially. I mean, I've seen him in the NBA. I've seen him. Weirdly, I feel like I've seen him play like a lot of his minutes for Minnesota that he got. I kind of like him. Like he's strong. I'm not gonna say he's an amazing athlete, but he's a good athlete for a four. I think he's played five as well at times, and yeah, I think there's stuff there with him. Like I think there's an interesting dude there. Was he 25 or something? He's not super young, but he's not like a guy where there's absolutely no upside to be had. It's just a matter of can he cash in on it, which I mean, who knows? He's not going to get much playing time here in all likelihood. Obviously, we know that fours for Thibs, tough to get minutes ahead of Julius Randle. But like, I I don't know. I just kind of like he's a good rebounder. He's strong. I would. I actually wish they'd played him more yesterday. To be honest, like I wanted to see more. I would have liked to see him get some of those Jericho Sims
Yeah.
4 minutes, more than Jacob Toppin, because I can kind of understand how maybe you'd be hesitant because you're like, well, he's kind of raw and we don't know if he can kind of like we don't want to disrupt the flow of things right now. Sure, whatever. But like I think Nathan Knight looks like he can I mean he's played NBA ball. He's been around the league now for a while. I think wasn't he like a really good scorer in college or something, Nathan Knight. I don't remember what it was, but like he's just again somebody I would have liked to see a little bit more of him at the floor. Not that I think he's a floor spacer, but there's a big difference between what he is offensively and Jericho Sims. And
Well, some kind of
um
threat, right? Where they can't just leave
yeah,
you alone. And it's tough because Mitch is also if it was a center again, if it was Hardenstein, that you brought this up before. I think Mitch and Sims is probably even a little bit worse than Sims and Hardenstein, right? Because Hardenstein can move around, he can pass a little bit. It's still probably too constricting, but yeah, any guy who's a little bit more of a threat, either off the ball or um,
with the
you know,
ball.
with the ball, or being able to catch and shoot, or something, right? But Sims took one jumper yesterday, and his jumper doesn't look awful, but he's a bad free throw shooter. You have to assume it's not in his bag. So
It's something when it comes off, like it all looks good until he finally
releases
releases it. And it's like it almost feels like it rolls off his wrist or something. It's so odd. It's like he lets it like roll down his hand and then he pushes it off his wrist. It's very weird.
yeah, but I mean that's probably not going to be a thing. And if he can't shoot, I mean, how many fours in the league can't shoot?
The only one
Scotty
that
Barnes.
I mean, yeah, Scotty Barnes is one, but like most of the ones that can't are like playing with the five. Like so Vanderbilt would be one,
Yeah,
right? So like Vanderbilt can't really shoot at all, but he can play the four next to AD. Even though AD is not a 3-point shooting threat really, but there's just more space there for him to operate.
Mobley, I guess, would be another. But
Yeah, and
if he will,
Even with Vanderbilt, it's not like a super easy thing. I mean, he played with Cat, which worked obviously because Cat has real gravity outside the arc. But yeah, it's even for him, right? It's hard. It's not easy even if you're playing with a floor stretching five. So it's just really tough. I mean, the best example is Draymond, but that's its own like insane thing. It's just none of these guys are gonna be Draymond, and unfortunately, like as much as I love Emmanuel Quickly and love Jalen Brunson and love all, I don't think anybody that we have is necessarily going to be Steph Curry either. So
I remember I said that on Locked On Knicks, and I got oof. Um, yeah, no, I would have to agree with that. No, I think that they have a couple of intriguing guys at the bottom of the roster. What?
those are the two that like I think those two. I think we have 3 open roster spots. If you put a gun in my hand, we're like, who would you pick just based on merit? I would pick was it Daquan Jeffries, Nathan Knight, and Jacob Toppin. Those would be my choices. But my guess is one will be Archie, and then they'll probably take Nathan Knight, and they will take, I'll say Jeffries because I think Thibs likes him. So that would be
Oh.
my guess. And then
But
I
they have
think,
the Toppin family connection. I mean, they still have good
yeah, I
relations.
mean, I think Toppin will stick, but he'll be like in the G League or some capacity.
Yeah, it might be easier for them to keep him. I let Jeffries has other NBA interests too. That's part of it. Like I know Kings fans really liked him when he was on the team. So in terms of game two, anything you are looking for that you want to see?
Just the heart at the 4 minutes. That's it. That's really all I care
Well,
about.
if
I
he's
don't really
out,
give a. He
RJ
won't
the
be out.
fourth.
Yeah, whoever. I mean, if he's out, then yes, RJ the fourth. Then we need to see that for that game. But like, he shouldn't be out. He's supposed to be. I mean, he was healthy last night. They said he just didn't play because he didn't play. So maybe it was a rest thing. But he should be ready to go on Friday. That's what I'm ready to see. Like, I'm ready to see hard at the 4, and then pick the 3 guys you want to see him with. But I'm ready to see that when Randall's on the floor, I see hard at the 4.
How do you think it is going to work out if he has to guard, a Bobby Portis at the 4, Jared Vanderbilt or someone like maybe Vanderbilt's an easier thing, but someone like Portis or one of these bigger fours. And I think to the point that a lot of people have made, there aren't a whole lot of those where, or I still agree with kind of that. But how do you think they handle that? Do they just play Randall a ton of minutes? Do you think they go with Sims? Do you think they try a guy like Toppin or Knight, or do you think that Hart can survive a matchup like that
I think Hart will be fine there. Like if a team
on
wants to
Portis?
post, if Portis, if Milwaukee wants to post Portis to death on us, I will gladly do that. Great. You want to take the ball out of Damian Lillard's hands or Giannis's hands
Well, this would be
to
their
feed
bench.
Bobby Portis? Yeah, but presumably one of them would be on the floor for most of that time. Like, okay, if you want to do that, great. I'm very, very happy to allow you to make that happen. But no, I've not been worried about that at all. I've been like completely okay with the potential size mismatch that you're giving up. I don't think it matters. I really don't. Like, I don't think there are a lot of 4s that can actually punish you for it. And it's it's like we see this around the league. There's so many teams that don't play some traditional 4 at the 4. Like I mean, even Draymond, as strong, like Draymond's a strong guy. He's bigger than Hart, but he's what? They list him at 6'7", whatever the hell he is, and I know his wingspan is crazy. But like, you clearly can get away with playing Josh Hart at the 4 for 12, 13 minutes a night. And you have RJ there too. Like, however you want to split those duties, I don't think that's going to kill you. If that's what sinks this team, I would be shocked. I'd be shocked because, like, did anybody think that Obi just being as big as he was such a huge advantage for us last year? I didn't. In the way he was used, I didn't think so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's just it'll be interesting because I do think a guy like Portis can be very effective against Hart. I do wonder. I just hope we're not enticed into going with Sims or something like that, or or if there's other there's the possibility of foul trouble, those kind of things. So will definitely be interesting to see how they handle it.
Yeah, no, that'll definitely be interesting. um, was there anything that you saw? I mean, I we barely talked about this, and I don't really know how real this is because it wasn't like a lot of it was in crunch time, or not crunch time, but a lot of it was in the fourth quarter. Um, did you see any noticeable differences with the offense? I didn't see anything that I saw that was noticeable, but in the fourth, what I did like is how much they went through Hartenstein as a facilitator, which is something that like we talked about last season as why aren't we leaning into this more? They should lean into that more. And yesterday we saw that a bit more. I do think that's a natural consequence to a degree of just like
That lineup.
yeah, that lineup. But I do hope that's something that is in their minds as a like strategic option for them because you can get more value from Hartenstein than we even got last year. And he was really good for us last year. And it also just gives you another way to attack a defense rather than running, 7,000 pick and rolls for your point guard or pistol action for RJ or ISO Julius.
Yeah, and I think there's it's all the counters you can build off of that, right? On the surface, it's like, well, I can run a pick and roll with Quickly. But all right, let's say they have to worry about the pick and roll to Quickly, and you look like you're setting that up, and you set it up, and then Quickly throws an entry pass at the high post to Hartenstein, and then he darts off ball, right? Now you have a defense worried about, well, you have the DHO as a possibility, or Quickly rejects it and goes the other way, and Hartenstein can hit him with the pocket pass, or he kind of fans out to 3, or he goes and sets a screen. There's a lot of things you can do off of that, which they didn't really explore that as much yesterday. But those are the kinds of things where, and that's I think people complain about the Knicks offense not being complex, but I don't think it will have to be for most of the regular season. Where it comes into is, where it really comes down to is, your year one, they just got to the playoffs. That was great. They had a regression year 2. Now the Knicks are an entrenched player in this space. And actually, this is, to me, it's a little bit like the situation that, we've both followed with Michigan football, where it's like the last 2 years, they were worried about beating Ohio State and getting there. And now it's like, well, when you're, you play rock, paper, scissors, when your rock is really strong, you're going to beat a lot of teams. But eventually, when you get to the highest levels, you got to learn how to play paper. You got to learn how to play scissors. And that is what the Knicks will have to add. They're going to have to learn how to deal with the fact that there can be a team that can beat you even if Brunson gives you 40 and efficient 40. I think the biggest answer for most people is, well, Randall will probably be better. And I actually believe that. I know that you're probably a little more skeptical than me on this. But ultimately, they're going to have to be able to win in different ways. This is really where the great teams kill you. The Nuggets have a million ways to kill you. They can kill you with Murray. They can kill you with Jokic at the high post. They can kill you with him in the low post. They can kill you in transition. And kill you going small. They can kill you, by space in the floor. They can kill you on the glass. All of the great teams have. So that's really where, and that's where you talk about running into the ceiling with Thibs. I think people talk about, we have it's not about having a boring offense. It is about, can you win in multiple ways? Can you stress a defense in multiple ways? Do you have constraints on your initial actions that would lead to more constraints? And when all of that kind of one circle of constraints that you might put on a defense is contained, can you pivot to something else? How many of those pivots can you create? That's really the question in terms of the offense. And Hartenstein, to your point, is a very strong candidate to be one of those, I think. The other ones are, I think, using Quickly and Grimes more on movement, using DiVincenzo as a movement just in general, incorporating more movement shooting, getting a little funky with RJ in the pistol action. I think they did some interesting things with him. I actually loved his process all game. I don't really think he made a bad decision all night.
He took one stupid pull-up 3. That was it.
Yeah, but wasn't that late in the shot clock? Or no, it wasn't late in the shot clock, but it was that Sims Hartenstein lineup. Like, everyone's taking bad shots in the lineup.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it's a stupid shot, but I'm like, are you really going to get a better shot there? Maybe.
And to your point about Deuce, I want RJ. One day, if RJ can take pull-up 3s, that'd be awesome. So this is the time where
that's one of those things that I've moved on from.
Fair enough. I haven't. I've seen it. I still have hope. But I think that's what we're really looking. I mean, to that point, what do you think is going to be? What are kind of some of the wrinkles that the Knicks can add? Or you mentioned Hartenstein. Using him top of the key to kind of set up the offense and invert the offense. Anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, the Knicks, I feel like they don't do this well. And some of this it's always hard to know. Like, I think it's always easy to be like, well, why doesn't Thibs do this? But like, I would like to see, Randall big pick and rolls or Randall small pick and rolls. But I also think Randall's handle, I don't think Randall's handle is good enough to do that a lot of times. Like, especially against smalls where they can kind of like get under him and pick at it. It's hard then. So like, I think that I would like to see that, especially like the 4 or 5 to me is like, I do feel like there's something there. Like, you should probably fuck around with that a little bit more, because you would think you'd get a decent amount of space with Randall running 4 or 5 pick and roll with Grimes, Brunson, even RJ spotting up around him. So that's probably one I would like to see a little bit more of. And we've seen like one-off instances of that previously, even if it's not been consistent. I mean, it hasn't been consistent. So even despite that, aside from that, like I don't know. I'd like to see Grimes get more opportunities to run pick and rolls, but maybe Grimes is doing it in practice and it's not looking that great. And so that's why they don't do it. Could you run some pistol action for Grimes? And what will he do off of that? I don't know. Like I don't know how to answer that. But I would at least
I'm not that high on his ball handling, to be honest. Like he's good
I'm
at
not
attacking
either.
closeouts. But everyone's like, oh, he was a creator in college, and it's like, I think this is just he can be a great version of this player, and that's a great player. But yeah, like this whole Grimes creation package, I'm not that.
I don't believe in it, but I'd also just like to see it, especially right now in the preseason. I'd like to see more of that and make that kind of like, I don't want to say a focus, but at least more of a focus. I'm trying to think like what else I would really like to see. We've already talked. I mean, we've talked about the hard at the 4 thing until we've talked about that all summer. So that's not really like hard or RJ at the 4, right? That's not been a big one.
I'm curious. I'll ask this. You mentioned Randall as a pick and roll ball handler with Mitch. He's been pretty effective. It's very rarely used, but quickly just being a good screener. And when I say good, yes, illegal screener. He comes from the Golden State Warriors book of screens. So I'll fully admit that quickly screens are probably not 100% legal. But I think given the amount of shooters they have, I think that's an interesting one, right? Randall is the ball handler next to Quickly or Grimes or DiVincenzo or Brunson even screening. I don't think Brunson sets very good screens, but you have some options there.
Yeah, I just again like it's hard to like. Are they using those screens off ball? Because I don't know how effective that is. It can be. It definitely can be. It's just hard to know exactly how you use that as a weapon. We saw them use it in the playoffs on ball to create mismatches that they wanted, which really helped them out a ton against Cleveland, especially. But like, yeah, I think the quickly screen stuff, I think I'm okay with how much he screens because I mean, some of it is he just does it himself. He just takes it upon himself to do it. But I think that part is okay. I think maybe what I would really like to see is just more. I feel like off ball, we're always static in a way where it's like the center's in the dunker spot and the other guys are spotted up around from beyond the arc. I would like to see more screens from like if you have a guy on the opposite wing and the guy in the opposite corner, the wing goes and screens for the corner shooter to pop out. Like stuff like that would interest me. Like I think we should do more of that. And I did see a little bit of it yesterday. I mean, not that we got a lot of opportunities given some of the personnel we had out there, but there were a few instances I saw. So maybe that is something that they've worked on, but I mean, I don't know that obviously. I mean, I don't think there's too much more. The main thing, honestly, would just be can you mix and match your groupings more? Like we know Thibs has been quite rigid in the past about just kind of like this is when this guy comes in for that guy, and then this guy's gonna come in for that guy, and then this guy will come back in, and like that's just how it is. But this group has a lot of flexibility, and there's a lot of combinations you can throw out there. So I would like to experiment with that more. And like, we'll probably get the Villanova lineup at some point, right? We'll probably get the young dudes lineup, and we'll probably get a lot of different lineups, but can he mix and match that more consistently, even when it's not forced on him because of foul trouble, because of injury, because of whatever? Like, will he just do that of his own volition? That's I mean, he said it before. He said it before preseason. He said it in the past. So it's all like, I'll believe it when I see it stuff. But that is the biggest one because this personnel grouping that we have is pretty flexible. And it would be annoying if we didn't at least try to lean into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's something we've been screaming about for years, right? Everyone says this team doesn't have a star, this team doesn't have a star, but what they've had. And then on it, to be honest, some of that flexibility is, maybe you lost a little bit with Obi leaving. But the strength of this team is that you have 10 guys you can put in a variety of different positions. And the one I don't want to see is the one we saw a lot of yesterday. I'll ask you this. I'm going to say, the lineup, I've been saying this a lot. The lineup I'm most interested in seeing, especially against bench units. And one thing I did like yesterday, I hope it continues, but maybe it's just because Hart's out, but I really want to see Randall against benches. I think you need to stagger Randall and Brunson. I think Brunson has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is going to get his. He is going to have as long as Brunson's on the floor, starters, bench, whoever it is, you're gonna have an effective offense. Randall's the guy that can really benefit from going against the bench relatively. And then what do you want? You want to do surround him with shooters. You want to surround him with passers and the guys who can get him into transition. So a IQ, DiVincenzo, Grimes, Randall. I don't care who the big is. I think when I brought this up on the Discord, people were like, you probably want Hartenstein because he's more passing or whatever in that lineup. Fine. But I don't care who put put Randall next to one of our bigs, quickly Grimes, DiVincenzo. I do not know how you guard Julius Randle that lineup. I think that lineup is going to be a monster defensively and force a lot of turnovers, get into transition, get Randall easy buckets. I love that lineup a lot. I'm curious, are there any lineups that you really want to see beyond kind of what we talked
about? I'd like to see Brunson, quickly, Hart, RJ, and a center. That intrigues me quite a bit. We did see that a little bit in the Cleveland series. But I think you can get around, and we saw this pretty consistently, even if you go through the lineup data. When you have two of Brunson, quickly Grimes on the floor, even with RJ and Hart, the spacing is not as much of an issue. And it still gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of you have more ball handlers, you have more speed. Randall is fast, but Randall does not he does not run the floor in the same way that he used to when he was younger, and certainly not in the way that other guys do. And I think when Brunson plays with quickly and he plays with Hart and he plays with RJ, he's a lot we tend to get out on the floor or get out in open space floor. And him as a trailer, as a shooter is awesome because he's a fucking great shooter in that sense. And hey, if you don't get anything in transition, you kick it back out to him, you're still good to go in the half court. So that's a lineup I would like to see. And you can plug in a bunch of there's so many combinations of that lineup, right? It could be Dante and Brunson. It could be quickly and Dante. It could be whatever. But that idea of playing small and then having two guards that can space the floor out at the 1 and 2, especially when those two can create the way quickly and Brunson can. I think that is that is something I really, really hope they experiment with.
Yeah, no, I think quickly and Brunson, quickly and everyone is a good lineup at this point. But I think you saw it. That was one thing that was nice yesterday. It seemed like early in the game, they made a concerted effort to not just get RJ going on ball, but to get him, there's pistol, there's pick and roll with Mitch, empty side. And that also opened up, he hit Brunson for a nice kick out three on which Brunson relocated, right? So some of the off balls things, which I've said for a while, it's not that Brunson's a ball hog or some ISO heavy guy. What differentiates him, I think, from a lot of those other players in that mold is that this is a really good off ball. It's a playoff for Luka fucking Doncic, who never gives the ball up. He knows how to find space, and I think using RJ in those situations and quickly for sure can help a lot. So I definitely agree with that. I guess, do you think that if you had to take, what would you put the money line on? If Dante DiVincenzo gets hot, will we ever hear the phrase Dante's Inferno from Mike Breen? What's the money line? Plus 200, plus 250?
I think much lower. I think it'd be minus 210.
You think it's going to happen?
Yeah. If he's on fire, I think you'll definitely get a Dante's Inferno line from Breen after he's done screaming bang.
Hopefully no Purgatorio lines. So.
Yeah, I'm just honestly I'm excited to see this team once we get to the real games and we're getting the full rotation as long as it's the perceived 9-man rotation. I hope Thibs is not setting us up for some stupid 10-man rotation with Sims getting minutes to 4. But if it's the 9-man rotation we all expected it to be, I'm just really excited to see this team. And I people need to just fucking shut up about the minutes. I'm so sick about hearing about the minutes. How are they going to make the minutes work? Who's going to have to sacrifice? Who's going to do this? It's like people, the Knicks need more talent. Oh, the Knicks get more talent. Okay, no, but not like that. Now who's out? Now what about this guy's minutes? It's like you can either suck or you can be good. And if you're good, you're going to have probably a pretty good roster. And on that pretty good roster, you might have to figure out minutes game to game, or some guys gonna have to sacrifice, or whatever the fuck it is. That's part of being a good team. I'm sorry. Like, you can't bitch that the Knicks have sucked forever and then also be like, well, now how are Quickly and Grimes gonna get their minutes? How is RJ gonna get enough touches? And it can't be everything. You're gonna have to deal with some shit. Like, the minutes will figure themselves out too in a lot of ways. Injuries will happen. That is like 100%.
Wow, dude, that's a dick thing to say.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality. Injuries will happen. Guys will miss time, and other dudes will have to step up, and they'll get more minutes, and it'll figure itself out. Like we saw last year, right? Mitch missed 23 games last year. Brunson missed, I think, something like 12 or maybe less than, I don't know, whatever he missed. But he missed some time last year. Like, guys are going to miss games. It's just part of professional sports and the NBA also. Like, it's going to happen. So I'm not too worried about that part of it too that people keep bringing up. I'm just excited to see what combinations this roster is capable of and what Thibs attempts, because I do think like there are a lot of interesting combinations, especially from 1 to 3, that can be had.
Yeah. I mean, look, the minutes thing is going to happen. I don't think we're probably the first team to have, I haven't done any research on this, but there's always going to be teams with youngsters that, teams that are both really good and draft well. They're going to have youngsters waiting in the wings that aren't getting what, maybe many feel like their minutes. And, it is worrisome, right? That you have the Quickly extension that still hasn't happened. You hope that happens. You hope no one's unhappy. The thing is this, though. I do think that Quickly and Grimes are the guys who are talked about. And no one's really worried about RJ Barrett losing his minutes. I think Quickly and Grimes have ascended to the point where they're not going to lose their minutes to Dante DiVincenzo because he got $11 million a year. Like, Grimes, there is a guy making $18 million a year on this roster who started to make a stink about the fact that he was surpassed by Grimes. And you can say it was blindingly obvious, right? Fine. And maybe it should have happened earlier. But Thibs, he started Grimes. There is a sentiment maybe that Hart cut into his minutes, but Hart was pretty fucking good. Do I think he should have played next to RJ in the Heat series as much? No. But I've told you this. I think that Grimes was hurt. Do I think that the way it was handled still probably by Thibs was right? No. But I don't think if Grimes 100% healthy, you're seeing him benched for Josh Hart in that way. And I think if Quickly or him gets beat out by DiVincenzo, it's because he's flat out better. And at this point, that is what it is, right? But I don't think there is maybe a vet bias. We saw him, and everyone's going to say, well, he started Alfred. Yeah. And you have talked a lot about how much we hated the fact he started Alfred Payton over him. Or I'm tired of blaming Alec Burks. I'm going to say he started Evan Fournier over Quickly, right? The real starting lineup should have been Quickly next to Burks. I mean, you'd agree with that, right? Like, Burks should have started too.
Yeah,
he's a good player.
Burks a better player.
Point guard. Yeah. But I think that Quickly and Grimes, that relationship with Thibs has evolved beyond that point. And I don't think if they were to lose minutes to DiVincenzo or Hart consistently, I do think that would be merit-based more than really anything. And if it's merit-based, that is what it is. Maybe they're not as good as we thought. But I don't think there's a situation where those guys are like really playing well and just being shunted for worse. That's not what's going on. We got in 2 other vets who can play some roles, and you're going to have some fluctuations and stuff, but I don't think they're going to be systematically kept out. And then the other guys, I mean, RJ's minutes are safe. I think that's always been pretty clear. Um, a guy like Deuce, it just too many guards. He's a good player. I think he'll stick somewhere for sure. Unless there's a Quickly or Grimes trade, it's probably not going to be here. But in terms of the minutes, yeah, like to your point, like I don't think this is not the situation. They're not bringing in Fournier or Alfred Payton to start over a rookie that you want to see they know what they have in these guys. They're very high on them. They brought in guys to complement them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think, especially if Quickly gets paid, by the way, like I think he's pretty good. Once you get paid, you've kind of graduated to a different level of player to him. So maybe Grimes, I do think Grimes is a little bit more susceptible to seeing his minutes cut than Quickly at times, because I still think, like, I know the playoffs were their own thing, but push comes to shove, I feel like Quickly is a guy that he trusts. And he's honestly, to be fair to him, even during the weird second season that we had in 21-22, he still trusted Quickly to close games a lot. And he's trusted Quickly to close games since his rookie season. So, like,
I think Thibs has been on the defensive tip for a while. So I think even when Quickly was shooting like shit, he knew that he was a better defensive option than, like, obviously Fournier. So
yeah. So, like, I think that he's always been pretty good about that. And I don't see why that would change. If it's going to change, it'll be because somebody is just outplaying him, or somebody is, or like it's their night, right? I don't know that I highly doubt there's a consistent starting lineup. The only pushback that I think is fair, and I think people can levy this at him, is like, he does seem to really just, I love Josh Hart, but I think he overvalues Josh Hart at times when he shouldn't. Like, there are situations where we probably don't need Josh Hart on the floor to close games. And after the Josh Hart trade, Josh Hart pretty much closed every single game. That will be a problem, because there are going to be nights where Quickly's outplaying him, and Grimes outplaying him, or RJ's outplaying him. And he has to be able to make the right decisions in those moments.
But Hart didn't close every game during the regular season last year, right?
I'm almost positive he did. I'd be shocked if there was one he did. Maybe it was a blowout, but I feel like he closed pretty much every game.
How often did he was usually, how often, he never closed really with RJ though, right?
They closed a couple games. I know they closed a Denver game together. There's probably a couple others I can think off the top of my head, but like, he basically closed every game. And I mean, we talked about this at the end of the year. Like, Quickly was closing more games than RJ was, right? Grimes was the one who never closed, more or less, in the regular season. I think the one time he did close was kind of like when they were shorthanded at the end of the season, or that last Miami game in the regular season when he didn't even close with Brunson in that game, right? So, like, he will make these decisions at times. It's about, this is just a point, and this roster is at a point where, like, he's got to make the right call more consistently, and it has to be
the margin for error is lower when you're at this level, right? This is no longer we're trying to be relevant. We are relevant. We're trying to every step is incrementally hard.
Yeah, and DiVincenzo too, by the way. He's definitely somebody who could close games at times. So he's got options. It's important for him to make the right ones. We'll see what he's capable of. Like, but at this point, I think another thing that should just be retired, and we can close with this, is if you think Thibs is a great coach, that's fine. But like, he no longer gets the pass of, he doesn't have the talent, they don't have a star, they don't have this thing, they don't have that thing. This team does it have a top 5, top 10 player? No. But like, tough shit, dude. A lot of teams don't. This team is very talented. You have to make consistently good decisions, and you have expectations to win games. At this point, this is no longer anymore just about, oh, doesn't have enough talent. No, he's got talent. It's on him to deliver now. And I'm not saying win a fucking championship, but this is a team, as far as I'm concerned, they should be pushing for the 3rd seed in the East. That is my standard for them. Not saying they got to get the 3 seed, but they should be in that mix. They should be in the mix for 50 wins. And I don't feel like that's asking too much of him.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, it is sad. I think our friends at the Hot Hand Theory podcast, which I'll plug at the end because I hope everyone will check that out. Um, they tweeted out about how, like, every player is getting ranked low. I think you tweeted out yesterday, like, Mitch's ranking actually went from 98 to 100 on, was
Yeah,
it Bleacher Report?
whatever. No, it's ESPN
After
today. Yeah.
yeah, after bodying the shit out of two guys, I'm sure were a lot higher than him.
Jared
Um,
Allen wasn't, but I'm sure Mobley will be ranked in the top 50, which is very stupid.
Allen was below Mitch.
He wasn't in the top 50, so unless he gets ranked as a top 50 player, he will not be above Mitch.
Ah,
Maybe he does though. Maybe I'm
I
totally
could
wrong.
see
But
him
we'll
getting
see.
ranked.
Yeah.
But the point is, obviously, Mitchell Robinson, he was, I think, the most valuable player in that series. He's no lower than two. And Brunson was great, so that's not a knock on Brunson. But I sent to Jeff this message. I was like, well, a lot of Knicks fans unironically believe that, yeah, every player on the team does. The tweet that they sent out was, it's crazy the Knicks won a playoff series last year and got the 5 seed and won 47 games in spite of the fact that every player on their team sucks. And I was like, but I think there's a lot of fans who believe that. And their rationale is like, well, Thibs is the greatest coach ever. That's what we heard when they were starting Elf, right? They're winning games, they're making the playoffs. And, I think we often find ourselves, I think, in the unfortunate standpoint of being a little bit in the middle where we're very highly critical of Thibs, but the few times we haven't, like, called for Leon Rose to be fired, we get considered, to be biased or, not objective or whatever. But I think that, when it comes to, I think that Tibbs has had that leeway, and now you're just judged on a different. You're a victim of your own success in that. So I mean that you're on the plan, but now you have to show us that you've got to outdo all these. This is where those differences matter. No one's saying you have to be Eric Spoelstra, but the talent, you're not going to have a talent advantage, or even not be at a severe, or you're not going to have this kind of talent disparity where just coaching to your identity is going to win you the championship. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have multiple tools in your box, and you have to develop those over the course of the season. And this will be fun to watch. And I do think, if they stagnate, I do think he'll. We saw what happened to Dwayne Casey. You saw George Karl win Coach of the Year and get fired. Like, the pressure is there, and as much as Rose has a great relationship with him, I'm sure Tibbs is aware of that, and I'm very curious to see, how he starts to, I think he has to keep his identity. Like, this identity is important in the Knicks, but how do you kind of diversify around that? That's gonna be fun to watch this season.
Yeah, and also just like at a very basic level, there should be no game the Knicks go into the season, and you should feel like, well, there's no chance they can win this game because the talent disadvantage is just so crazy. Like, no, I'm sorry, you don't get that anymore. Like, again, it doesn't mean like, oh my god, if they lose to the Celtics, I'm not going to be like, oh my god, how the fuck did they lose this game? But I'm also not going to sit here and be like, if we beat the Celtics, be like, oh my god, what a fucking miracle! Only Saint Tibbs could have done this. Like, no, like this roster is really good. He has expectations. The players have expectations. Let's see what happens. All right, I think that's a good place to end it. Stacy, let the people know where they can find you. Plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy Patton 89. I will plug a few things. I'll plug all the coverage of the WNBA finals at the Strickland by Gigi and Matt. I think Gigi and Matt are actually recording our other pod right now, Believe Knicks, which I won't be on, but you should check that out. If they're not doing it tonight, though, I'll be on the one that they do after game 2. I'll plug Strictly NFL, which I've learned a lot from about football, even though Khan's a Giants fan. He's very, very insightful, and I've learned a lot from him. And I'll plug the Hot Hand Theory podcast that our friends XJ and Jeff are starting. Two really smart guys. We've had Jeff on here, before, and they're putting a lot of great content as well, and I think you'll enjoy that as well. So a lot of great content in the space. Exciting season and time to be a Knicks fan right now, and I encourage you to check it all out.
Yeah, I will echo all of that. Definitely check out the Liberty work that Gigi and Matt have done on the Strickland, and definitely check out the pod they're doing. Maybe right now, maybe at some other point in the future. Also, 100% agreed. Subscribe to, follow the Hot Hand Theory on Twitter. I'm sure that Frank or not Frank, Jesus, Jeff and XJ will be doing great work on there. And then also, again, Strictly NFL, awesome show. That's also Jeff and Khan on there. They're doing great work. And if you haven't taken a listen yet, check out the inaugural episode of Takes from Obvious Bozos that dropped last weekend from Zach and Drew. So, going to plug all of that. I will plug our merchandise again, which I'm wearing some of if you're interested in that. And aside from that, I will plug BetOnline, our wonderful, wonderful sponsor. That is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you on Friday.
Can we do one other thing? Sorry.